You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire you to go out and live purpose-filled lives and own your God-given power. I believe that we can lead a purpose-filled life while we are raising children to be well-rounded individuals, while we're building incredible businesses, and while we're making a greater impact at both the local and global level. I believe that whatever God has called us to do, with a little determination and grit, we are able to do whatever it is that we set our minds to. That is my hope for this show each and every single week. I hope that you leave inspired and empowered through stories that I and my guests share with you. So without further ado, let's jump right in, shall we? Hey, you guys, and welcome back to The Power Project. Now, today's episode is going to center around a question that I'm asked often and frequently, and I'll be completely honest. Up until now, I've felt like I just can't totally answer this question authentically and providing as much advice and that you can take away to go forth and prosper. So I, however, have shaken off the imposter syndrome today, and I've decided that there's enough of you guys asking for this. I'm going to go ahead and put it out into the universe and just answer the question. So the question is, how do I get started podcasting? You guys, I have so many people that send me messages on a regular basis asking about, what do I need to know when podcasting? How do I get started? Can I pick your brain about this? And honestly, all that I could say up until now is, here's a podcast that I listened to that told me about podcasting, and then I Googled everything else. So I literally, you guys, just dug through the internet and the podcast world to learn everything that I know to get this show up and running. However, there are things that I wish I would have known in the beginning when I started. And so that's what we're going to do today. Our subject today is going to be podcasting, what to know when starting a podcast, and what I wish that I would have known when I started. Now, the very first thing that I wish that I would have known, the very first thing that I wish I would have sat down and written out is, what are your goals with your podcast? Now, you guys, the number one thing that I ask people when they tell me they want to start a podcast, why do you want to start a podcast? So you need to know that. You need to know, are you looking to inspire people, educate, or entertain people? Those are really the three main categories, and that is great. But what are your tangible goals? And I once asked this in a Facebook group that I'm on. We're going to touch on that in a bit. I said, what type of goals should I have for my podcast? Because being a person that sets goals and works towards goals, I like to know what I'm aiming for. And there were all of these rainbows and butterfly answers and fluff, and your goal should just be to reach that one person at home. And that is my goal, but that's not the only goal. And then I got answers like, your goal should just be to have more listens, more plays, and more downloads than yesterday. Yes, that is great. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of time and energy that goes into creating a podcast, producing a podcast, editing a podcast, promoting a podcast. It really is a job. And a lot of people go into this with a hobbyist mentality, which is great. I am passionate about my podcast, but it's not really just a hobby for me. It is a passion project that I aspire to grow to a greater caliber. So in that sense, you need to know what your goals are with that podcast. So to begin with, I wanted to inspire women to lead purpose-filled lives and own their God-given power. I wanted to show them spotlights of women that were doing just that so that they would believe that they could too do the same thing. However, if I sit down and I get really honest with myself, I have to break it down. Where do I want this podcast to be in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 12 months? How many subscribers do I want? How many downloads do I want? Now, if you're first starting out, you're thinking, I don't even know what a number to shoot for is on subscribers or downloads. And you guys, you can't fall into the comparison trap here, but what you can do is get involved in some podcast communities and start seeing what is a goal to strive for. What is a low number? What is an average number? What is an exceptional number? And decide, do you want to have an average podcast or an exceptional podcast? Then set your goals. When you set your 30, 60, 90-day goals and chart out, and I do this with my assistant. I did not do this in the beginning, but this is something I have adapted to doing, and I'm so grateful for it. I wish I would have done it from the beginning. So if you're starting today, sit down and put 30, 60, 90-day goals. Each month, you should be increasing your subscribers as well as your downloads. And make sure they're SMART goals. If you guys are not familiar with SMART goals, I've talked about them before. So they're going to be the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based goals. Make that apply to this podcast and set those goals right now from the very beginning before you ever push record or publish. Now, the next thing that I would highly recommend you do right now, and I wish I would have done this in the beginning, is create a content planner. So I did not have this in the beginning. In the beginning, I was seriously winging this, and I was doing spotlights of whomever I could get an interview with at that time. But as the podcast evolved, I realized that we needed themes. So I started setting aside certain themes that I wanted to speak to in different months. So January is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So I knew that I wanted to do an episode about that and feature some type of nonprofit that brought awareness or fought against human trafficking for January. January is there's also a mental health awareness in January. So I've lost a good friend to a struggle with mental health. So those were my themes that I worked with in January. The entire month of February, I dedicated to love, because I love love. And each week was a different episode committed to some form of love. In May, we talked about motherhood because of Mother's Day. In June, we talked about parenting and traveling with kids because kids are out for summer. For July, we are focusing on business because it's kind of a time of rest that we can ramp up for what is coming in the next season as we get ready to launch season 2. So we thought it would be a great time to launch business tips. And then in August, we'll start to talk about back to school, scheduling, taking care of yourself. So come up with a content planner, schedule out which weeks you're going to talk about which, and then you can always move around when you end up with guests that you want to move further ahead in your publishing schedule. So it doesn't have to be set in stone, but a content planner will help you so much because then it's going to help you align your social media posting, your email marketing, and your congruent theme of topics. So the next thing that you need to consider, and it wasn't really something that I gave a lot of thought to in the beginning, but you need to decide if you're going to have solo episodes or you're going to bring guests on. Now, in the beginning, I fully intended to spotlight women that are leading purpose-filled lives and own their God-given power. So I had all of these amazing women that were truly leading purpose-filled lives. I had women that were overcoming insurmountable odds. I had women that were founding nonprofits. I had YouTube stars. I had women that were building businesses, women that were trying to change the stigmas around mental health. I had women that were fighting for the traffic victims overseas. However, what I found was my audience was asking for more of me. They really enjoyed my guest spotlights. They loved the fact that I was introducing them to all of these new incredible women. But they also really enjoyed hearing my voice and what it was that I had to offer. So it wasn't for several episodes. I believe it was actually 15 episodes before I finally published a solo episode. And I only did that after I had multiple people requesting that I go ahead and do a solo episode. And even after that, it still took quite some time before I became comfortable in being the only person that talked during an episode. So you have to decide in the beginning, are you going to do interviews and have conversations with other people on your show? Is it going to be the same person as a co-host each week? Is it going to be different revolving guests? Or is it going to be you talking about the subject that you're looking to speak about? Super important. And don't get stuck in that box. If you start out one way, it's okay to evolve. Your show's going to evolve over time, just like mine did. And your audience is going to tune in because they're there for you and your show. Now, that brings me to a second point here, is where do you find guests? So this could be a question that I've actually received several times. It's probably a question that you've asked yourself. Where are you going to find the people that you want to talk about the subjects with? Now, whether you are on Instagram or you're on Facebook or you're a fan of in-person networking, you most likely have a community of like-minded individuals that is your tribe, squad, community, groupies, whatever you want to call it. And you can start talking amongst that community and asking where there are people that your tribe would like to hear from. And I personally comb social media for people that align with my purpose and my vision, because I am very, very particular about the fact that I do not want to stray from my brand, my platform, and my mission. Now, while people on my show can look differently than me, sound differently than me, be from totally different places, I do make certain that we have common core values. And I reach out. I send them a DM on Instagram. I send them an email to their podcast manager or their media manager if they're a big name. And I say, hey, I think that what you're doing really aligns with my mission. I have this podcast. I would love for you to be a guest on my show. Now, another way that I find guests is utilizing Facebook groups. So there's one Facebook group called the Podcast Movement Community. There are something like 60,000 people in the group, and they come from all walks of life, all genres of podcasts, all types of beliefs and platforms and missions. And so that's a great place that you can interact with other podcast hosts. Most podcast hosts are looking for guests on their show as well as to be a guest on someone else's show. So this has been a really great resource for me. I typically put a question over there, and as people answer my question, I go through and I vet. I look at their Facebook profiles. I decide if this is someone that can provide valuable content for my audience with tangible takeaways that can help inspire us. So there are other Facebook podcast groups that I am involved with as well. That is just the main core one. Over on Instagram, you can follow hashtags rather than the Facebook groups, and you can find hashtag podcast, hashtag female podcaster, hashtag podcast host. If you follow those podcasts, you'll see posts that are posted by other podcast hosts, and that can let you know if their mission aligns with yours and if you would like them to be a guest on your show. Now, how do we schedule guest interviews? What do we send them before an interview? How do we make this whole transaction happen? So it's kind of like, congratulations, someone said yes to be on your show. What next? For starters, I send them an email saying, thank you for agreeing to be on the show. Here is my calendar for when you can schedule to record an interview with me. So I time block, I utilize Calendly to time block my schedule, and I set aside the time during the day on which days I do interviews, and my guests can choose whatever time is convenient with them on that. I send that link directly to them, and then I get an email that they've scheduled that, and it gets added to my iCal. So that is the easiest way I've found to schedule it. Schedules do change. They bounce back and forth, and sometimes we have to move it up 30 minutes, back 30 minutes, forward a day. As long as my schedule allows it, I'm not super rigid on sticking to the original schedule.
This episode is brought to you by Brandy Voth Beauty. Have you tried the #1 skincare brand in all of North America? Well, if not, today is your day. Head over to the-powerproject.com, click on Powerful Beauty, and take a 30-second skincare consultation to see what products are recommended for your skin concerns. Email yourself those results, and then I will personally mail you a thank you gift for your time. That's thepowerproject.com, Powerful Beauty.
Then I also send, along with that, an email saying that these are the subjects that I would like to cover on the episode. And then if I have specific questions to ask, I'll list them. I'm not a super scripted podcast host because I like my podcast to have a conversational feel. I like it to sound like two friends sitting on a couch discussing the topic. However, if you have specific questions, go ahead and put them out so that people know what they are speaking to. I always tell them what my main goal of the episode is and what I want my listeners to gain or take away from the episode so that they can be guided in the direction that I want the show to go. Now, I also let them know that I will be contacting them closer to the recording time with the link to record on. And in this email, I let them know if they need to download an app, should they be on a desktop or their phone, and do they need headphones so that they are set up. I also tell them to make sure they're in a quiet room with their computer turned to do not disturb so that we have the best utilization of our time. I don't schedule a pre-recording call. I just do about 10 minutes at the beginning to get to know my guest one-on-one, and then we hit record. Now, something else to think about is, will you break for the holidays? I didn't think about this ahead of time until the holidays were upon me. Are you going to break at Christmas? Are you going to break during the summer? It's totally up to you, and there's two schools of thought on this. The first is you are in control. You are your own boss. You have the freedom to set your schedule. The other is show up consistently each and every week and don't stray from that. Now, this can actually be a time when it benefits you to keep recording through the holidays and summer because others take a break and you may be able to fill the gaps. There may be someone that has been subscribed to a podcast they listen to that goes on summer break, and you might be the new podcast that they listen to. However, it's totally up to you. I personally took a 3-week break at Christmas because I had been in from September to December in the newbie podcaster mode where I was really scrambling each week for episodes, and I needed a little bit of a reset to plan out the next year of podcasting for me. I chose to continue recording throughout summer because I do feel that it's a time that people are traveling, they're on the road, and they can listen to a podcast. And sometimes no break, just a straight transition. We do 50 episodes in a season. That gives us a window to be able to take some time off at the holidays if we choose. And then you're going to want to decide what day and what time you are going to post. So I started off in the beginning posting on Tuesdays, but then I changed that to Thursdays for a couple of reasons. One is I kept struggling with, at the end of each episode recording, saying, I can't wait to see you next Tuesday. And I just could not finish the episode with that phrase. So I changed it to Thursdays. That's not the only reason. Also, Tuesdays are hectic for me. The front end of my week is very heavy loaded. The back end of my week is more work from home. So while I have my episodes pre-scheduled and ready to publish on Thursdays, sometimes I make changes to that because I might have a guest pop up that I'm able to interview and I want to push their interview through. And sometimes there are events going on that I want to talk about that week. So if I have it on Thursdays, I allow myself room to be able to go in and bump an episode, record a new one, publish something relevant record, edit, upload. Now, I publish my episodes at 6 a.m. on Thursday mornings. This is so that people can listen while they are doing an early morning workout or they're on a commute. My episodes average 35 minutes because your average commute in the US is about 30 minutes. So they can get the majority of an episode listened to in one direction to work. If they speed it up by 1.5 times, they can totally hear the entire episode. Now, show notes. I didn't even consider or know that show notes were a thing when I first started recording. It wasn't something I thought about or considered. However, show notes are super important because this is going to give your guests a way to go back and find things that they've heard in your episode and they want to go back and look up. So if you've referred a restaurant or a vacation destination, a business course, an app, a clothing line, you can have that in your show notes and people can just scan the notes rather than re-listen to the entire episode to hear what it is. So I type my episodes up in bullet points. Some people go with a full-on script. I'm a bullet point type of person. And then I take those bullet points and I transfer them to my show notes so that it's all cohesive. It's all what I've talked about in the episode. And in my show notes, I'm able to make sure that I include links for my guests to be reached at. I include links that promote whatever merchandise it is that my guest has to sell. If they have a new book out, if they have a new course, coaching course, workshop, whatever it is, I can put that in my show notes where people can find it. Also, if I have a partnership that offers me a discount code for my listeners, I include that in my show notes. I also ask for subscribers and reviews in the show notes every single week. Now, if you would like to give your audience an additional resource that helps continue the loyalty of your audience and keep people engaged, a PDF or a freebie resource is a really, really great tangible item you can offer to your audience. And it's super simple to do. You can transfer your notes, your bullet point notes that you have for your show. You can transfer them into a Canva PDF, and you can make it a workbook or a guide that follows along with the show episode, what you talk about, and your audience can download it. This way, they're able to continue the conversation and they're able to take your tips and tricks and apply them to their life. So that is all easily transferred from my pre-show bullet points into my notes and into a Canva PDF. Now, how do you pitch your show to your guest? We talked earlier about finding guests and scheduling guests, what they need to know when they are coming on the show. However, while you start to branch out and you start to sell your show to a bigger name guest, you're going to want to make sure that you let them know what is in it for them, why they want to be on your show. So for starters, you want to create a bio that you keep, like a PDF bio that you can shoot over in an email that tells what your show is, what your mission is about, what your goal is for your audience each and every single week, and why your audience needs to hear from this guest. So if your mission is strong enough, you guys, don't be intimidated by the big names. Even if you're brand new, even if you don't have download insights or the analytics of your subscribers or your reviews, even if you don't have those to be shared, if your mission is strong enough and you can accurately relay that to your guest, they're going to say yes. And if it's a big name guest that you know that you're going to have to sweeten the pot, make certain that you offer to promote their book, their workshop, their conference, whatever it is that they have where they can get free advertising on your platform. Let them know you fully are committed to sharing that with your network, because you guys, free advertising is golden. Now, while we talk about promoting, let's talk about the promotion of your show. Because you guys, this is just like any other aspect of business or a nonprofit or a ministry. it's great to put it out into the universe, but until you really accurately make certain that people in the universe are coming in contact with it and absorbing it and having it become a part of their daily routine, then you're not truly promoting what it is that you're doing, and you're wasting time. You're spinning wheels and staying in one place. So you want to make sure you promote this podcast, not just with your immediate network, but with the entire network of your target audience. So after you record, one way to promote is make certain that your guests are promoting your show. So after recording, you're going to send guests the link to your show, and then you're going to thank them for being on your show and ask them to please promote and tag you on all of their social media platforms. If they have a website or a newsletter, ask them to give you a shout out over there and include the link. Now, I occasionally will go on to a Facebook page, thank the guest for being a guest on my show, and include the link and tell them how great of a time I had. That way I know for sure it gets put out to their network. And do not just trust that a guest is going to promote your episode, because I promise you from experience, they will not unless you ask them to and highly encourage them to. Now, self-promotion is the number one key factor to growing your podcast. You want to be promoting your podcast on all platforms of social media. You want to be promoting it in person. You want to be promoting it via email marketing. And you want to be promoting it to every single person you come in contact with. Literally, if there's some way you can find a way to put the word out there that you have a podcast and then they ask you what it's about, have them right there in person. Go ahead and subscribe to it. Show them where to listen to it, how to subscribe to it, and ask them to write a review. The reviews are what help get ratings. The ratings get you to the top of the charts, and this increases your download numbers, which in turn brings on more guests. And then when you move into the realm of looking for sponsorships and brand partnerships, you have hardcore analytics to show why you are a great representative of that brand. Now, you guys, if there are other things that you would like to know about podcasting, that you can start with the most basic of basics, and you can go up to the most advanced of advanced steps to podcasting 101. The number one thing is you need to get your podcast out there. Don't wait for it to be perfect, you guys. Mine certainly did not start out perfect. It is still not perfect. It is a work in progress, and I firmly believe we have just been building the plane as we fly it. But it's out there, and it's reached people, and it's touched lives, and I'm having a blast with it. But if you would like a little more help on starting your podcast, I have a course over on Skillshare, which breaks down some really elementary basics to starting a podcast. I wish I would have had it in the beginning, because everything that I listened to was more high level, and I really had to Google the basic entry level of podcasting. So you can get that over on Skillshare. You can sign up. It's a membership site. The first 60 days are free, and you can get my Skillshare podcasting course for free over there as a gift from me to you. I will put that link in the show notes so that you can go ahead and download that course today and start podcasting. Seriously, what are you waiting for, you guys? I can't wait to hear your show. Send me a link and send me an email or a DM, whatever you would like to send me, so that I know you are out in the podcasting world. Okay, you guys, there it is. What to know when starting a podcast. I hope that you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, I am going to ask for it again. I know I ask every single week, but do us a favor. Go write a review, rate us, subscribe, and share this podcast on all forms of social media. You guys, tell your friends about this podcast, because that is what helps us bring you new shows each and every single week. As always, I cannot wait to speak with you next week, but until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.